Come closer, my dears. If you're here with me tonight, leave a like, subscribe, and share this tale with someone you care about. I'd also love to know where you are watching from and what time it is there. You know, when you reach 91 years old, you don't just collect wrinkles and memories in this world. You collect wounds. Not all of them are visible. Some are carved so deeply into your soul that not even time can heal them. Tonight, I'm going to tell you about 3 New Year's Eve nights from my long life. 3 nights when, while others were celebrating, I was forced to work the night shift. 3 nights that taught me the most dangerous predators don't hide in dark alleys or abandoned buildings. They hide in plain sight, wearing friendly smiles and ordinary clothes, waiting for you to let your guard down. These stories are real. Every word happened exactly as I am about to tell you. And if you think you're safe, because you're at work, surrounded by lights and people passing by on the highway, then you need to listen very carefully, because danger doesn't take holidays. And sometimes the night shift is when evil clocks in. My name is Margaret. I'm 91 years old now, and these are my stories. The first story I need to tell you happened on New Year's Eve in 1968. I was 25 years old, newly divorced, and struggling to make ends meet. My ex-husband had left me with debt and a broken heart. So I took a job as a waitress at an all-night diner called Rosie's, right off Route 9. I was quite literally paying the price for marrying too young. Now, you need to understand that Rosie's wasn't a cute little roadside cafe. It was a rundown diner with cracked vinyl booths, a jukebox that only played 3 songs, and a cook named Eddie, who smoked cigarettes while flipping burgers. But it was open 24 hours a day, and the tips from truck drivers kept my electricity on. I'd been working there for 6 months and had gotten used to the night shift. A lot of people think working from midnight to 8 in the morning is terrifying. But honestly, it was peaceful. Highway traffic thinned out after 2 in the morning, and I spent most of my shift refilling regulars' coffee cups and reading paperback novels behind the counter. But New Year's Eve was different. Everyone wanted the night off to celebrate, so the owner offered double pay to anyone willing to work. I desperately needed the money. My landlord was threatening eviction, so I volunteered. Eddie agreed to work the kitchen, and it would just be the 2 of us until the day shift came in at 8. The evening started off busy. Families stopping in for dinner before heading to parties, couples sharing coffee, truckers fueling up for long drives. By around 11 o'clock, the crowd had thinned considerably. At 11:30, the diner was empty, except for an elderly regular named Mr. Peterson, who always ordered decaf coffee and apple pie. He left around quarter to midnight, pressing a $5 bill into my hand and wishing me a happy new year. I watched his taillights disappear down the highway, and then it was just me, Eddie, and the hum of the fluorescent lights. Eddie poked his head out from the kitchen. "I'm gonna step out back for a smoke. You good up here?" I nodded. The diner had large plate glass windows facing the highway and the parking lot. I could see everything. If a car pulled up, I'd hear it. "Take your time," I told him. He disappeared through the back door, and I was alone in the dining room. I grabbed my book and settled onto the stool behind the register. The clock on the wall read 11:52 p.m., 8 minutes until 1969. That's when I heard the bell above the front door jingle. I looked up, and my stomach did a small flip. 3 men had walked in together. They were all wearing dark jackets and jeans, and something about the way they moved, synchronized, purposeful, made the hair on my arms stand up. But I forced a smile. This was my job. "Evening, gentlemen. Sit anywhere you'd like." They didn't respond right away. They just stood there in the entrance, looking around the diner slowly, methodically. One of them, the tallest one with dark hair slicked back, walked over to the jukebox and studied it. Another one, shorter with a thick neck and a scar above his eyebrow, walked to the windows and peered out toward the highway. The third man, who looked the youngest, maybe early 20s, came up to the counter. "Coffee," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "Sure thing." I grabbed a mug and poured. My hands were steady, but my heart was starting to beat faster. Something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but my instincts were screaming at me. The young man took the coffee, but didn't drink it. He just held the mug and stared at me. Not at my face, at my name tag. "Margaret," he said slowly, like he was testing how my name felt in his mouth. "That's a pretty name." "Thank you," I said, keeping my tone polite but distant. I glanced toward the kitchen door, willing Eddie to come back inside. The tall man by the jukebox called out, "Hey, Margaret, this thing work?" Yeah, you just need to put in a quarter." He didn't put in a quarter. Instead, he unplugged it. The music that had been playing, some Johnny Cash song, cut off abruptly. The diner fell silent, except for the buzz of the lights. "Why'd you do that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "I don't like distractions. If you're getting a bad feeling right now, leave a like. Trust your gut." The man with the scar walked over to the front door. I watched, my pulse pounding, as he flipped the lock. Then he reached up and turned the "open" sign to "closed." "We're not closed," I said, my voice shaking now. "And you can't lock that door. It's against—" "Relax," the young man said, still holding his untouched coffee. "We just want some privacy. It's New Year's Eve. We're celebrating." I took a step backward, my hand reaching for the phone on the wall behind me. "I need to call my manager." "Don't," the tall man said. He was walking toward me now, moving slowly, deliberately. "We don't want any trouble, Margaret. We just want to talk." My fingers touched the phone receiver. I was about to lift it when the man with the scar moved faster than I expected. He reached over the counter and ripped the phone cord out of the wall. The plastic jack clattered to the floor. That's when I knew. These weren't customers. This was something else. Something bad. I ran. I didn't think. I just bolted toward the kitchen, screaming for Eddie. I burst through the swinging door, and my heart sank. Eddie wasn't there. The back door was wide open, cold December air pouring in. I ran to the door and looked outside. Eddie was lying on the ground near the dumpster. He wasn't moving. There was blood pooling around his head. I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around. All three men were standing in the kitchen now, blocking my only exit. "Eddie was a problem," the tall man said calmly. "He saw us pull up. He was going to call the cops. We couldn't have that." "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Your register," the young man said. "And whatever's in the safe." I shook my head. "I don't have access to the safe. Only the manager does." The man with the scar pulled out a knife. It wasn't a big knife, just a folding blade. But the way he held it made my blood run cold. "Then I guess you're not very useful, are you?" The tall man held up his hand. "Wait, don't be hasty." He looked at me. "Margaret, I'm going to make you a deal. You give us everything in that register, and we'll leave. You'll never see us again. But if you scream, if you try to run, if you do anything other than exactly what we say, well, you're going to end up like Eddie. Understand?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Okay, I'll give you the money. Just please don't hurt me." "Good girl," he said. I walked back into the dining room, my legs shaking so badly I could barely stand. I went behind the counter and opened the register. There wasn't much inside, maybe $200 in small bills. I scooped it all out and placed it on the counter. The young man grabbed the cash and stuffed it into his jacket. Then he looked at the tall man. "That's it?" The tall man frowned. "There's gotta be more. Check the office." The man with the scar disappeared down the hallway toward Rosie's office. I heard drawers being yanked open, papers being thrown around. The clock on the wall read 12:01 a.m. It was 1969 now, a new year, and I was about to die. The man with the scar came back, shaking his head. "Safe's locked. I can't get it open." The tall man cursed under his breath. Then he looked at me. "You sure you don't have the combination?" "I swear I don't," I said, sobbing now. "Only Rosie has it. She'll be here at 8. If you just wait." He laughed. "Wait? You think we're stupid? By 8 o'clock, the cops will be crawling all over this place." The young man leaned in close. "We should just go. We got the register money. Let's get out of here." But the tall man shook his head. "No, She's seen our faces. She can identify us." My heart stopped. I knew what that meant. The man with the scar raised his knife, and that's when the police car pulled into the parking lot. I don't know if it was divine intervention or just dumb luck. But a state trooper had been driving by on patrol and saw the closed sign, even though the lights were still on. He pulled up to investigate. The three men panicked. The tall man cursed and ran toward the back door. The others followed. I heard the sound of the kitchen door slamming, then footsteps running through the parking lot behind the building. The trooper came to the front door and knocked. "Everything all right in there?" I unlocked the door with shaking hands and collapsed into his arms. I told him everything about Eddie, about the men, about the knife. They found Eddie's body. He'd been hit over the head with a tire iron. He died instantly, the coroner said later. He never knew what hit him. The police never caught those men. They vanished into the night, and despite a statewide manhunt, no trace of them was ever found. The register money they stole was less than $200. Eddie's life was worth less than $200 to them. I quit that job the next day. I couldn't go back into that diner, couldn't stand behind that counter, couldn't look at the spot where Eddie used to smoke cigarettes and tell me jokes. But here's the thing that still haunts me, all these years later. About 6 months after that night, I was at the grocery store and I saw him. The tall man. He was standing in the produce section, casually picking out apples like he hadn't murdered a man and nearly killed me. I froze. He looked up and our eyes met, and he smiled. That same cold, empty smile. Then he put the apples in his cart and walked away. I never saw him again. The second New Year's Eve. I need to tell you about happened 15 years later, in 1983. I was 40 years old by then, and I'd learned to be more careful. After what happened at the diner, I had avoided night shifts for years. But no matter what you do, life has a way of putting you face to face with the things you try to run from. That November, my husband Frank had lost his job at the factory. We had 2 teenage daughters, mounting bills, and Christmas had drained what little savings we had left. When I saw a job posting for a night shift cashier at a 24-hour gas station, I didn't hesitate. The pay was good, really good, because no one wanted to work on New Year's Eve. The station was called Randy's Fuel Stop, and it sat at a lonely intersection about 40 miles outside of town. It was one of those places that served as a lifeline for truckers and travelers, with rows of pumps, a small convenience store, and a garage that closed at 6 in the evening. By the time New Year's Eve arrived, I'd been working there for 3 weeks and had settled into the routine. Most nights were quiet. I sold cigarettes and coffee, restocked the chip aisle, and cleaned the bathrooms. The owner, Randy, had installed a security camera system under the counter and a panic button, and at least That made me feel a little safer. "You'll be fine," Randy assured me on December 30th as he showed me the schedule. New Year's Eve is usually dead after midnight. Everyone's at parties. You'll probably spend most of the night reading. He wasn't wrong. The evening started busy, people buying beer and snacks for their celebrations. But by 11:30, traffic had slowed to almost nothing. The last customer, a woman buying diapers and formula for her baby, left at 11:47 p.m. I was alone. I remember standing behind the counter, looking out through the large glass windows at the empty parking lot. The fluorescent lights inside made it hard to see into the darkness beyond the pumps, but I could make out the highway stretching in both directions, silent and still. The clock on the wall read 11:55 p.m., 5 minutes until 1984. I grabbed a bag of chips and a soda and settled onto the stool behind the register. The radio was playing Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, and I could hear the crowd in Times Square counting down in the background. That's when I noticed the car. It had pulled up to one of the far pumps, near the edge of the lot where the lights didn't quite reach. It was an older model sedan, dark blue or black. I couldn't tell in the dim light. The engine was still running, headlights on, but nobody got out. I watched it for a minute, waiting for the driver to come inside to pay or start pumping gas. But nothing happened. The car just sat there, idling. Maybe they're lost, I thought. Or maybe they're waiting for someone. I went back to my chips, but I kept glancing at the car. Something about it made me uneasy. After about 5 minutes, the driver's door finally opened. A man stepped out. He was tall and thin, wearing a heavy winter coat and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He didn't walk toward the store or the pumps. Instead, he walked to the back of his car, opened the trunk, and stood there for a moment, looking inside. Then he closed the trunk and started walking toward the store. I straightened up on my stool and put on my customer service smile, but my heart was beating a little faster. The way he moved, slow, deliberate, reminded me of something, of that night at the diner 15 years ago. If you're feeling that same dread I felt, hit the like button. You're not alone. The door chimed as he pushed it open. He didn't look at me right away. He walked past the counter, down the first aisle, and disappeared behind the shelves. "Can I help you find anything?" I called out, trying to sound friendly. "Just looking," he said. His voice was muffled, like he was speaking through something. I waited. I could hear his footsteps moving slowly through the store. He wasn't shopping. He was circling, walking up one aisle and down the next, getting closer to the counter with each pass. I glanced at the clock. 11:58 p.m. On the radio, the crowd in Times Square was getting louder. 2 minutes until midnight, the announcer shouted. The man appeared at the end of the aisle, closest to the counter. He was holding a bag of peanuts, but he wasn't looking at it. He was looking at me, and that's when I saw his face, or rather, what was covering it. He was wearing a surgical mask, one of those paper masks doctors wear. But it wasn't clean. It was stained. Dark, reddish-brown stains that looked horribly like dried blood. My stomach dropped. "Just this," he said, walking toward the counter and placing the peanuts down. I didn't move. I couldn't. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, but I was frozen. "That'll be 65 cents, I managed to say, my voice shaking. He reached into his coat pocket, slowly, too slowly. And then I saw it. Not money. A knife. A hunting knife with a serrated edge and a handle wrapped in black tape. He placed it on the counter between us. "Open the register," he said quietly. "And don't touch that button under the counter. I know it's there." My hands were trembling as I reached for the register. I pressed the button to open the cash drawer, and it popped open with a ding that sounded obscenely loud in the silence. "Take out the bills," he said. "All of them. Don't leave anything behind." I started pulling out the cash 20s, 10s, 5s, 1s, and placing them on the counter. There wasn't much, maybe $300 total. Randy always did a cash drop before leaving for the night. "Is that it?" the man asked, his voice hardening. "Yes," I whispered. "That's all there is. I swear." He didn't believe me. He reached across the counter and grabbed my wrist, squeezing hard. "Where's the safe?" "In the back office," I said, tears streaming down my face now. "But I don't have the combination. Only Randy does. Please, you can take the money. Just take it and go." He let go of my wrist and scooped up the cash, shoving it into his coat pocket. Then he picked up the knife. "You're coming with me," he said. My blood turned to ice. "What?" "You heard me. We're going to the back office. You're going to open that safe." "I told you I don't have the combination." He pointed the knife at me. "Then I guess you better figure it out." On the radio behind me, the crowd erupted. 10, 9, 8. He grabbed my arm and started pulling me toward the back of the store. I tried to resist, but he was too strong. He dragged me past the aisles, past the bathroom, toward the small hallway that led to Randy's office. 7, 6, 5. We were almost to the office door when I heard it. The beautiful, wonderful sound of a car pulling into the lot. Headlights swept across the windows. The man froze. He looked back toward the front of the store, and for just a second, his grip on my arm loosened. I didn't think. I just reacted. I slammed my elbow into his ribs as hard as I could. He grunted and stumbled backward, and I ran. I ran toward the front of the store, screaming at the top of my lungs. 4, 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year! The door burst open, and 2 men walked in. Truckers, by the look of them. Big guys with flannel jackets and thermos cups. Help me, I screamed. He's got a knife. They didn't hesitate. One of them rushed toward the back, while the other grabbed me and pulled me outside. I heard shouting, the sound of things crashing, and then the back door of the station slamming open. The man in the surgical mask ran out into the parking lot. He sprinted toward his car, and I watched as he jumped inside and peeled out of the lot, tires screeching. The trucker who'd gone after him came back, breathing hard. "You okay, ma'am?" I nodded, even though I wasn't okay. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. The police arrived 20 minutes later. I told them everything. The mask, the knife, the car. I gave them a description, and they put out an APB. The truckers stayed with me until Randy arrived, pale and shaken. "Margaret, I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "I never thought—" "It's not your fault," I told him. But here's the thing that still haunts me about that night. 3 days later, I was watching the evening news. The anchor was reporting on a murder that had taken place on New Year's Eve, just 30 miles from Randy's station. A young woman had been working the night shift at a different gas station. She'd been found in the back office, stabbed 17 times. The register had been emptied, and according to witnesses, the suspect had been driving a dark-colored sedan. The police never caught him. I think about her sometimes. That young woman who wasn't as lucky as I was, who didn't have truckers walk in at the right moment, who opened that register and went to that back office and never came back out. I worked 2 more shifts at Randy's before I quit. I couldn't do it anymore. Every time that door chimed, every time a car pulled up to the far pumps, I was back in that moment, staring at a bloody surgical mask and a hunting knife. Randy understood. He gave me 2 weeks severance pay and a glowing reference. But the worst part? About a year later, I was at a shopping mall with my daughters. We were in the food court, and I looked up from my tray of Chinese food, and I saw him. He was sitting 3 tables away, eating a slice of pizza. No mask this time, just a regular-looking man in his 30s, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt. But I recognized his eyes, those cold, empty eyes that had stared at me across that counter. I grabbed my daughters and left immediately. I didn't call the police. I didn't confront him. I just ran. Because I knew something then that I still know now, all these years later. Some people are hunters, and they're always looking for their next victim. I was lucky twice, at the diner and at that gas station. But luck runs out eventually, and I wasn't about to test mine a 3rd time. The 3rd and final New Year's Eve I need to tell you about was the night that changed everything. I thought I knew about death. It took place in 1999, on the edge of a new millennium. I was 56 years old, and after years of avoiding night shifts, I had finally found a job where I felt safe. I was working as a nursing assistant at St. Michael Hospital, a small community hospital on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't a large facility, just 3 stories with around 60 beds, but it served the area well. I worked on the 3rd floor geriatric ward, helping elderly patients with their basic care. I can tell you that caring for the elderly is deeply meaningful work. Most nights, the 3rd floor was quiet. Most of our patients were in the final stages of their lives, too weak to cause trouble, too tired to do anything but sleep. Strangely enough, it was a peaceful job. Their conditions were sad, but being able to help them, even in small ways, brought a sense of calm. I had been working there for 8 months when they asked me to work on New Year's Eve. Most of the staff wanted the night off, and they were offering overtime pay. Both of my daughters were grown by then and had families of their own, and Frank and I had no special plans, so I agreed. "It'll be an easy shift," my supervisor Linda told me. "Everyone's medicated and sleeping by 9. You'll probably spend most of the night doing paperwork and watching the ball drop on TV." She was right at first. My shift started at 11 p.m., and when I arrived, the floor was already settling down for the night. I did my rounds, checking on each patient, making sure everyone was comfortable. There were 14 patients that night, all of them over 70, most of them asleep. Room 307 was empty. The patient who'd been there, Mrs. Chen, had passed away that morning. They hadn't filled the bed yet. Room 312 held Mr. Kowalski, a stroke victim who couldn't speak. Room 315 had Mrs. Patterson, a sweet woman with dementia who thought I was her daughter. Room 318, at the very end of the hall, held Mr. Raymond Finch. Mr. Finch was dying. Stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors had given him days, maybe a week at most. He was 82 years old, and according to his chart, he had no family. No wife, no children, no visitors. He was dying alone. When I checked on him around 11:30, he was awake. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling, his breathing labored and wet-sounding. "Mr. Finch," I said softly, approaching his bed. "Can I get you anything? Some water? Ice chips?" He didn't respond, didn't even look at me, just kept staring at the ceiling with those rheumy, unfocused eyes. I checked his vitals, adjusted his blanket, and left him to rest. The nurse on duty, a woman named Carol, told me to keep a close eye on him. "He's probably got less than 24 hours," she said quietly. "If anything changes, if his breathing gets worse, or if he seems distressed, come get me immediately." I nodded and went back to the nurse's station at the center of the floor. The station had a semicircular desk with a view down both hallways. From there, I could see every patient room door. Carol left at midnight to do rounds on the 2nd floor. The other nursing assistant, Jerry, was on his dinner break, I was alone on the third floor. The clock on the wall read 12:03 a.m. It was the year 2000 now. A new millennium. Somewhere in the world, people were celebrating, setting off fireworks, kissing loved ones, toasting champagne. But here, on the third floor of St. Michael's Hospital, it was just me and 14 dying people. I sat at the desk and started filling out charts. The floor was silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional beep of a heart monitor. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, shuffling footsteps coming from the hallway to my left. The hallway where Mr. Finch's room was located. I looked up from my paperwork. The hallway was empty, but I could still hear them. Shuffle, pause, shuffle, pause, like someone dragging their feet. I stood up and walked toward the sound. Hello? Mr. Kowalski, is that you? Do you need help? No response. The footsteps stopped. I walked down the hallway, checking each room as I passed. Room 312. Mr. Kowalski was in bed, sound asleep. Room 315. Mrs. Patterson was snoring softly. Room 318. I stopped in the doorway. Mr. Finch's bed was empty. The blankets were pushed aside. The IV line was dangling, and the bed was completely empty. My heart started pounding. He couldn't have gotten up. He was too weak. He couldn't even lift his head this afternoon. Mr. Finch? I called out, stepping into the room. The bathroom door was closed. Maybe he'd somehow managed to get up, to drag himself to the toilet. I knocked on the bathroom door. Mr. Finch, are you in there? Silence. I opened the door. The bathroom was empty. If your heart is racing right now, leave a like. Mine was pounding out of my chest. I ran back to the nurse's station and grabbed the phone, dialing Carol on the second floor. Carol, we have a problem. Mr. Finch is missing from his room. What do you mean, missing? I mean, his bed is empty, and I can't find him. He must have gotten up somehow. Margaret, that's impossible. He can barely breathe, let alone walk. I know, but he's not in his room. I'm going to search the floor. I hung up and started checking every room, every closet, every possible place an elderly man could hide or collapse. Nothing. He wasn't anywhere. I was starting to panic when I heard it again. The footsteps. But this time, they were coming from the stairwell. The stairwell door was at the end of the opposite hallway, near the elevator. It was supposed to be locked from the inside for security reasons. But sometimes, staff forgot to engage the lock. I pushed open the stairwell door and looked down. The concrete steps descended into darkness. The lights were motion activated and hadn't been triggered. Mr. Finch? I called down. My voice echoed off the walls, and then I heard it. A voice, weak and raspy. Help me! I flipped on my flashlight and started down the stairs. My footsteps echoed loudly. When I reached the landing between the third and second floors, I stopped. Mr. Finch was sitting on the steps. He was wearing his hospital gown, his bare feet on the cold concrete, his back against the wall. His face was gray, his lips blue. He was staring straight ahead, not at me, but through me. "Mr. Finch!" I rushed to his side. "What are you doing out of bed? You're going to hurt yourself." I reached out to help him up, and my hand passed through his arm. I froze. I tried again, reaching for his shoulder. My hand went right through him, like he was made of smoke. I stumbled backward, my flashlight clattering down the steps. This wasn't possible. This wasn't real. Mr. Finch's head slowly turned toward me. His eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils, just empty, bottomless darkness. "She's waiting for me," he whispered. His voice sounded like it was coming from far away, echoing through a tunnel. "Who's waiting for you?" I asked, my voice trembling. He lifted one skeletal hand and pointed down the stairs, down toward the first floor. "She comes every year," he said, "at midnight to collect us, the ones who are ready." "I don't understand." "You will," he said. "When it's your time, you'll see her too. And you'll have to decide, go with her or stay and suffer." I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs. This couldn't be happening. I was hallucinating. I'd been working too many shifts, not getting enough sleep. And then I heard something that made my blood run cold. Singing. A woman's voice, high and clear and beautiful, singing a lullaby. It was coming from somewhere below, drifting up through the stairwell. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." Mr. Finch smiled. It was the first time I'd seen any expression on his face all night. "She's here," he said, and then he stood up. He shouldn't have been able to stand. His legs were withered, useless, but he rose to his feet effortlessly, like he weighed nothing at all. And he started walking down the stairs, not shuffling, not struggling, walking smoothly, steadily, following the sound of that voice. I watched him descend, watched him fade into the darkness of the stairwell, until I couldn't see him anymore. The singing stopped. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen on that landing, too terrified to move. It could have been seconds or minutes. Finally, I heard Carol's voice calling my name from above. "Margaret, where are you?" I climbed back up to the third floor on shaking legs. Carol was standing at the nurse's station, looking worried. "Did you find him?" she asked. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How could I explain what I'd just seen? "Margaret," Carol grabbed my shoulders. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Before I could answer, the phone at the nurse's station rang. Carol picked it up. "Third floor? Yes. What?" Her face went pale. She looked at me as she listened, her eyes wide. Finally, she hung up. "What is it?" I asked. though part of me already knew. "That was the ER," Carol said quietly. "A patient just died. They're bringing the body up to the morgue." She paused. "It's Mr. Finch. He died at 12:15 a.m. They found him in his bed. He never left his room." The room started spinning. "That's impossible. I saw him. He was in the stairwell. He was walking." "Margaret, I just came from his room. His body is still there. He's been dead for at least 15 minutes. Maybe longer." I felt like I was going to be sick. "But I saw him. I talked to him." Carol guided me to a chair. "Sometimes, at the end, patients have what we call terminal lucidity. They seem to wake up, seem to improve, right before they pass. Maybe you saw him earlier, before." "No," I said firmly. "This was 10 minutes ago, maybe less." And Carol, I tried to touch him, and my hand went right through him. He wasn't real. He was already dead." Carol didn't say anything for a long moment. Then quietly she said, "This is the 3rd floor. Things happen up here sometimes. Things we can't explain." "What do you mean?" She sat down beside me. "I've worked this floor for 12 years, and I can tell you, every New Year's Eve, someone dies at midnight, every single year, without fail. And sometimes other staff members report seeing them, walking the halls, standing by the windows, sitting in the stairwell." A chill ran down my spine. Why didn't anyone tell me? "Would you have believed us?" Carol asked. "Would you have taken the shift if we'd told you the 3rd floor was haunted?" I didn't have an answer for that. Carol stood up. "Come on, Jerry's back from dinner. Let's get some coffee." And a scream cut through the air. A woman's scream, high-pitched and terrified. We both ran toward the sound. It was coming from room 307, the empty room where Mrs. Chen had died that morning. I pushed open the door, and what I saw made me stop dead in my tracks. Mrs. Patterson, the dementia patient from room 315, was standing in the middle of the empty room. She was staring at the bed, her face frozen in horror. "Mrs. Patterson," I said gently, approaching her. "What's wrong? What are you doing out of bed?" She pointed a shaking finger at the empty bed. "There's a woman," she whispered, "sitting right there. Can't you see her?" I looked at the bed. It was empty. The sheets were stripped, the mattress bare. "There's no one there, sweetie," I said, taking her arm. "Let's get you back to your room." But Mrs. Patterson pulled away from me, her eyes never leaving the bed. "She's wearing a black dress," she said, "and she's smiling at me. She's holding out her hand. She wants me to come with her." Carol and I exchanged a glance. "She says it's time," Mrs. Patterson continued, her voice growing calmer. "She says it doesn't hurt. She says I'll see my husband again." Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling now. And then she took a step toward the empty bed. "Mrs. Patterson, no!" I reached for her, but Carol grabbed my arm. "Let her go," Carol whispered. I watched, helpless, as Mrs. Patterson reached out her hand, as if taking someone's hand that I couldn't see. She smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile that I'd never seen on her confused face before. "I'm ready," she said, and then she collapsed. We caught her before she hit the floor. Carol checked for a pulse. "She's gone," Carol said quietly. We carried Mrs. Patterson back to her room and laid her gently on her bed. Carol went to call the doctor while I stood there, staring at the peaceful expression on the old woman's face. 2 deaths within an hour, both at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. I worked the rest of my shift in a daze. When my replacement arrived at 7 a.m., I walked out of St. Michael's Hospital and never went back. I called Linda the next day and told her I was quitting. I didn't give a reason, and she didn't ask. But here's what I learned that night, what I know to be true even now. At 91 years old, standing at the edge of my own mortality, death isn't always cruel. Sometimes it's a woman in a black dress, singing lullabies, holding out her hand, and offering peace to those who are ready. Mr. Finch had been ready. He'd been alone, suffering, with no one to hold his hand at the end. So she came for him. And when Mrs. Patterson saw her, saw that same gentle invitation, she went willingly. I've thought about that night every New Year's Eve since then. I wonder if she'll come for me someday, if I'll see that woman in the black dress, hear that beautiful voice singing me home. And honestly, after everything I've seen, after all the horrors I've witnessed in my 91 years, I hope I do. Because if death looks like her, kind and patient and merciful, then maybe dying isn't the scariest thing after all. Maybe the scariest thing is living so long that you forget what you're living for. These 3 nights taught me something important. They taught me that danger comes in many forms. Sometimes it's a man with a knife who wants your money. Sometimes it's a predator in a surgical mask hunting for victims. And sometimes it's something beyond our understanding, something that walks the line between life and death. I'm 91 years old now, and I don't work night shifts anymore. I don't have to. But I still think about those 3 New Year's Eves, the diner, the gas station, the hospital, 3 nights that changed me forever. If you're working tonight, if you're alone in some building while the rest of the world celebrates, please be careful. Lock your doors. Trust your instincts. And if you see something that doesn't make sense, something that shouldn't be there, don't ignore it. Because I learned the hard way that the midnight shift is when the world gets strange, when the barriers between what's real and what's impossible start to blur. Stay safe out there, my dears, and Happy New Year. If these stories stayed with you, if they made you check over your shoulder or think twice about working alone at night, please leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe. I still have stories to tell, as long as time allows.